Which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. The pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes.
So moved.
So, and if there are no objections, the minutes stand as approved. Item 2.04 is establish agenda order. Mr. Gilliland.
Madam President, I move that the board remove item 4.12, General Trades Richard Henry Lee Elementary School, from today's agenda to be considered at a later date.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. All right. Item 4.12 has been removed from the agenda. Okay. Item 2.05 is board recognitions, and there are no recognitions today. Item 2.06 is school and community highlights. Is anyone from the board? Last week, Mr. Gilliland and I had the pleasure of being at the new teacher orientation, where hundreds of our new teachers, many of whom look very young, I must say, were there, and it was a fabulous kickoff, celebrating them as our new rock stars coming out. So it got fired up. I always say it's been a long time since I've been in the classroom, but whenever I go to that, I'm like, oh, I want to get back out there. So that was a great day. So I think everyone is very excited for the beginning of school. So item 2.07 is the CRASC report.
Hello. All right. Good morning, President Helmer, members of the board, and Dr. Arlotto. My name is Savannah Quick. I attend Northeast High School, and I'm Secretary of Education for CRASC. On August 7th, CRASC announced its new executive team members, and I would like to recognize them today. Our Chief of Staff is Connor Curran. High School Coordinator is Princess Merritt. Parliamentarian, Mia Anthony. Equity Officer, Brighton Bradshaw. Media Liaisons, Darsana Alagasarmi and Brenton Mead. And our Middle School Council is Emily Carroll. On August 9th, Student Board Member Josie Urea, along with our advisor, attended the first Maryland Association of Student Councils advanced session for the 2018-2019 year. During the session, they confirmed mask-appointed staff, presented staff reports, heard from the represented regions, approved bylaws, and much more. Also on August 9th, 3 CRASC members attended the Boom Lab held at Annapolis High School. This all-day event focused on helping girls build confidence and learn how to tackle any challenge that comes their way. I attended the event, and it was amazing to see girls from all walks of life come together for one sole purpose. On August 18th, CRASC participated in Navy Family Fun Day, supported by Naval Support Annapolis. We greeted Navy families and provided information about CRASC. Members of the CRASC executive team are also signing up to provide information at middle school orientations throughout the month. The first CRASC meeting of the year will be held on August 29th at 6:30 p.m. We are eager to begin working for the students of Anne Arundel County. I appreciate the time to give you a quick update about what's happening in CRASC. Thank you.
And we're glad to see you walking on your own 2 feet this time.
I know, and in heels.
Oh, even better. Yeah. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Savannah. And before we move on, I do want to welcome to her first meeting our student board member, Josie Urea. So welcome. Item 2.08 is the readiness for the opening of schools. Dr. Arlotto, your team, take it away.
Good morning, President Hummer, Vice President Gillian, members of the board, and Dr. Arlotto. For the record, my name is Dawn Lucarelli, and I'm representing the Office of School Performance. Before I begin our presentation on readiness for opening of schools for the 2018-2019 school year, I'd like to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Good morning. Michelle Batten, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction.
Good morning, Mary Talar, Assistant Superintendent for Advanced Studies and Programs.
Good morning, Sally Egan, Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services.
Good morning, Jessica Kutches, Executive Director of Human Resources.
Good morning, Matt Stansky, Director of Financial Operations.
Our readiness report begins with the Office of School Performance. First, our schools. Between transfers and promotions, 21 schools have new educational leaders. 8 schools will open with first-year principals, and 13 more will open with principals new to the building. 34 schools had changes in assistant principals. 16 were promoted, 16 were transferred, and 2 are joining us from outside Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Second, our students. We are projected to enroll a record number of students this year, and our staffs are ready to greet them at the door. At the secondary level, our Office of School Performance team work with the Office of Student Data and our Student Service Division to ensure all students have a completed class schedule for their first day of school. As we speak, our schedulers and counselors are working diligently to resolve any last-minute scheduling conflicts. At the elementary level, classrooms will be set and ready to go on day 1. Third, our school buildings. 5 of our schools are starting classes 1 day late to accommodate final preparations due to construction projects. Brockbridge Elementary, George Cromwell Elementary, High Point Elementary, Richard Henry Lee, and Corcoran Middle School. Fourth, athletics. Last year we had 11,239 student athletes participate in interscholastic sports and 805 additional student athletes in our awesome unified athletic program. Our 1,107 coaches are certified in care and prevention, CPR, concussion training, and heat acclimatization test training. In addition, to better serve our now 61% of coaches who are not traditional classroom teachers, our athletic department is teaching coaching modules for critical moments in sports, such as prioritizing student athletic mental and physical health and safety, teaching life lessons through sport, and integrating student athlete voice at all levels of programming. All this hard work pays off. Last year, Anne Arundel County Public Schools brought home 6 state championships. This puts our new countywide total at 385 since our first state championship in 1908. Finally, and fifth, the people in the Office of School Performance. Our team has worked hard with all school-based leaders to ensure successful opening of the school year. Specifically, on Monday, we hosted all principals at an opening celebration focusing on the 3 driving values in our strategic plan that you helped craft and adopt. All means all, ready, set, launch, and sound stewardship. We provided professional development leadership and planned in collaboration with our Office of Equity, energizing and engaging ways to help staff, students, and the community forge critical relationships during the first week of school and beyond. In summary, 123 principals and their school teams are ready and excited to welcome our students for the 2018-2019 school year, thanks to the collaboration of many offices.
Summer has been a busy time for the Division of Curriculum and Instruction as well. During the July Assessment Writing and Curriculum Innovation Academy, elementary and secondary teachers worked with content coordinators and resource teachers to create 67 new curriculum documents. The Academy included over 300 writers, and we had partners from Charles, Prince George, St. Mary's, Calvert, Queen Anne's, and Baltimore counties. Community stakeholders and MSDE staff also joined us in the experience. Collaborating with other school districts and business partners is both efficient and effective, as it allows us to share our ideas and learn from our experts in the field and colleagues who teach elsewhere. Our curricula includes real-world connections, authentic applications, and exploratory project-based modules. Learning tasks and assessments have been developed in all disciplines to build students' reading and writing skills to connect essential knowledge and concepts. We continue our commitment to elevating all students and eliminating all gaps. Throughout the summer, staff from Curriculum and Instruction, Advanced Studies and Programs, and Professional Growth and Development collaborated to plan and deliver learning for multiple audiences. We increased our opportunities to interact with administrators and instructional staff to focus on learning strategies to engage students and to promote diversity and cultural responsive teaching practices. This year, we are thrilled to launch the new 4th and 5th grade curriculum. Through shared efforts, we have produced a student-centered curriculum for our learners built around the themes of inquiry and discovery. Students will investigate new ways to engage, learn, and achieve through the 21st century learning skills: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. Within each discipline, we continue our emphasis on movement, play, and discourse. To support the implementation of our new curricula this year, 4th and 5th grade teachers will receive multiple resources to facilitate instruction, as well as job-embedded support from specialists in the Division of Academics. We are excited to continue our focus at the secondary level to meet the demands of the Maryland College and Career Ready standards. Our instructional approach is centered on developing conceptual understanding and systems thinking of our students to allow for connections across content and prompt problem-solving opportunities. In classrooms, students will engage in hands-on activities, utilize manipulatives, and conduct investigations to solve problems and participate in discussions in order to synthesize information and generate claims. To promote students' opportunity to learn, they will participate in blended instruction and have equitable access to challenging curriculum that provides focus, coherence, and rigor of the standards. It is our desire learning is engaging, relevant, and fun for all learners. We evaluated and the board approved 10 new secondary courses over the past 9 months in preparation of the opening of this school year. These new courses support the values of our strategic plan to offer important and relevant content, tools, skills, and experiences so that every student is able to confidently build and cross their own unique bridge from school to community engagement, workforce participation, and college enrollment. Our goal is to ensure students are actively doing and actively thinking through communication and collaboration.
The Division of Advanced Studies and Programs is dedicated to preparing our students to communicate precisely, work cooperatively, think creatively, and initiate action as they prepare to participate in a global society. At this time, 1,429 students have accepted seats within our programs of choice magnets this fall. We have waiting lists for middle school and high school STEM, middle school PVA, and high school IB. However, we are assessing these lists daily. Additionally, we currently have 2,695 home instructed students, of which 1,450 are supervised by the school system. This COMAR-driven schooling option is growing in Anne Arundel County. In fact, we received 24 new enrollments this past Monday. To prepare for the upcoming school year, 2,815 magnet students engaged in activities, camps, and/or bridge programs over the summer months. Specifically, in STEM, middle school students again this year focused on exploration, active engineering, team building, and communication. 6th graders explored Camp Lex, whereas 7th graders did work at exciting places such as the National Museum of Health and Medicine. 8th graders participated in a 2-day Changemaker kickoff experience at their schools. Activities for STEM and BEMA high school students consisted of app design, robotics, engineering, cyber STEM, environmental resource management, and participating in a Designing Your Future Summit. In PVA, students focused on an arts engagement. Middle school students worked in a variety of various art forms, building new techniques in and out of their prime track, as well as working with artist-led workshops on the creative process. 9th and 10th graders in PVA engaged in 3-day immersive workshops directly related to their PVA course of study and their creative process. Performances were integrated, as were collaborative projects. Our PVA juniors studied abroad. Partnering with students from Richmond, England, our students devised and presented a piece of work in a professional theater. In IB, the summer enabled transitioning middle school students to experience IB as global explorers and leaders with cultural simulation activities and field trips. High school students, on the other hand, either engaged in an innovation academy or leadership development around the topic of social justice. Each included guest speakers, field experiences, and design thinking. The culminating event for one was a Shark Tank competition in which students developed collaborative solutions to a community problem. We are also prepared and thrilled to implement the Triple E initiative in 10 elementary schools, including Phoenix Academy in the Annapolis cluster. Annapolis is the 6th cluster of this exciting program, which offers students an additional area of study with lessons designed to spark creativity and teach students to approach problems with an open mind. This program also provides elementary teachers with precious additional planning time. Advanced Studies and Program staff also actively participated in the Curriculum Academy with our CNI colleagues, as Ms. Batten has mentioned. This included planning for the needs of all students, including accelerated learners, during our collaborative writing days in June and July. Our staff further had the exciting opportunity to establish international relationships in Peru. Specifically, 10 K-12 teachers from schools across the district participated in a month-long volunteer experience in Cusco, heightening their cultural awareness and sense of respect in a Spanish immersion environment. Additionally, recognizing the impact on education when our educators' knowledge and passion are ignited, ASP office leaders both provided and or supported engaging professional development for our system's adult learners. This included Avid Summer Institute and Path Training, a Business and Law Institute at Anne Arundel Community College, Global Information Systems Training, STEM or signature teacher externships with organizations such as the National Sailing Hall of Fame, CIRC, CAC Makerspace, Amateur Ham Radio, Jug Bay Wetland Sanctuary, and CCBC. Teachers on the estuary at the Noonan Center on Smith Island, and a technology series on new instructional technology trends and system platforms. Finally, in our quest to create amazing learning for our students and teachers, we have also planned for authentic learning and application with a robust series of field trips, guest speakers, community partnerships and contracts, including the 911 course, and extended day and weekend student learning opportunities for the 2018-19 school year. Sally?
Good morning. The Division of Student Support Services has hired some terrific new staff. We have 6 new psychologists, 2 new social workers, 2 new pupil personnel workers, and 19 new school counselors heading into the new school year. We are especially pleased at the addition of 4.5 additional counseling positions. Thank you. 2 new psychologists and 2 new social worker positions funded in the FY 2019 budget, and the continued increase in the diversity of staff. The Office of Psychological Services is developing a trauma response protocol specific to acts of violence and is participating in the Governor's Advisory Board and Work Group for the Safe to Learn Act. Our division works closely with the Office of School Security to coordinate this effort. Other initiatives include providing county-wide behavioral assistant training and partnering with special education to train school counselors on functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans. This year, the Department of Pupil Personnel will continue to partner with Judge Spencer and the Anne Arundel County District Court on a truancy-specific docket that connects families with resources to overcome barriers to attendance. Homelessness continues to be an additional area of focus, with 1,260 students in the county identified during the 17-18 school year. The Homeless Education Office will be continuing the Power of One mentoring program to help connect our unaccompanied homeless youth with AACPS mentors. At the elementary level, School counselors will receive professional development on social emotional strategies for working with young children with behavioral issues so that their unique needs can be addressed. They will also be provided with information on the management of suicidal threats and gestures and trauma-informed practices to support early learning. Middle school counselors will continue to support the intentional focus by delivering classroom guidance lessons which teach social and emotional skills and promote college and career readiness. High school staff will continue to collaborate with principals to support the 9th grade intentional focus by utilizing Naviance to support engagement and relevance to students as they do career planning. This helps prepare high school students to be college and career ready. The division continues its outreach to students' families regarding immunization compliance status using multiple strategies to inform parents of entrance requirements. In addition, we are continuing our collaboration with the County Health Department and do not anticipate any organizational changes in school health services for the coming year. The Office of Safe and Orderly Schools has collaborated with school-based and central office staff at all levels to update and revise the 2018-2019 Code of Student Conduct. The Office of Safe and Orderly Schools team has provided several professional development sessions for school-based administrators and has provided an overview of the Code of Student Conduct to the community during the public summer series sessions. Those sessions continue to be available on our website. The Office of Safe and Orderly Schools team will continue to provide individualized support and professional development to schools on Code of Student Conduct implementation and proactive measures as prescribed by the Board of Education Policy and Regulation. For the upcoming school year, alternative education staff will continue to oversee 2 contract schools and 2 charter schools, which will serve a combined 2,600 students in kindergarten through 12th grade. Alternative education staff will also continue to support schools as they implement multi-tiered systems of support, which includes PBIS and restorative practices. These programs offer appropriate and timely interventions for students to help them meet behavior goals. A new school climate resource teacher position will further support the implementation of this program. Of special note is our division's partnership with several county agencies on a number of initiatives, including Handle with Care, DARE, and Living the Example. Handle with Care is a partnership between AACPS, the Anne Arundel County Police Department, the Annapolis Police Department, and the Anne Arundel County State's Attorney's Office, where schools will be notified of a student if a student has witnessed a crime or has been the victim of a crime, with no additional details. The schools will use a trauma-informed approach to support these students in school. A partnership with Anne Arundel County and Annapolis City Police Departments, DARE, is being piloted in 4 middle schools to provide substance abuse prevention curriculum to 6th grade students. The Mentor Foundation is piloting the the Example peer-to-peer mentoring program to support substance abuse prevention. 12th grade youth ambassadors will be trained to mentor other students to help them make positive life choices. As in previous years, we will support students, staff, and families who have experienced traumatic events both at school and in the community. Our test for support always comes down to a single factor: what is in the best interest of the student?
Good morning. As usual, summer was and still is a very busy time for the Division of Human Resources. We're preparing for staffing our schools with high-quality educators for the upcoming school year. As you know, quite a bit of work and processing occurs to get our teachers ready to teach our students on the first day of school. I want to publicly thank the entire HR team because it truly takes a talented team to get this work done each summer. Let me share some numbers with you to give you an idea of what our hiring season looked like this summer. We have hired 608 new Anne Arundel County Public School teachers so far. Our teachers came from a variety of places. Some are recent college graduates, while others come from other Maryland districts, out of state, and Puerto Rico. Currently, 130 of our new hires are diverse. As we continue to explore ways to recruit diverse candidates to our school system, we are expanding our reach in this area of recruitment. A little closer to home, 143 of our hires are graduates of AACPS. 22 were interns with us before we hired them this year. We are proud they have chosen Anne Arundel County Public Schools to come home to. Our substitute office has been working hard over the summer to ensure quality substitute teachers are available to hire into any remaining positions that have not had permanent teachers for them at that point. We currently have 1,742 active substitute teachers for this purpose. The number of our nationally board certified teachers continues to increase, and we currently have 410 active nationally board certified teachers. 96% of our schools have one or more nationally board certified teachers. Our staff is working extremely hard to continue to fill vacancies as we speak. So we look forward to being as close to fully staffed as possible when our students arrive for the first day of school. We are excited about our new hires, their energy, their ideas, and their potential to impact our students in a positive way.
Good morning. Facilities undertook significant construction or systemic maintenance projects at 62 of our schools this summer. These projects ranged from total school renovation or replacement projects to various additions and building component replacement projects to more routine tasks such as painting or wood floor refurbishing. Facilities has initiated construction activities at Edgewater, Tyler Heights, and Richard Henry Lee elementary schools. Equally noteworthy is that Facilities has completed or coordinated all the work necessary to open our third early education center at Cary Wheaton. All schools are in the final stages of being cleaned, stocked with supplies, and having furniture put in its proper place. In the area of transportation, Anne Arundel County Public Schools transports approximately 60,000 of our 83,000 students. All of our county-owned and contracted school buses have had their required inspections completed, and all drivers have had their required training and in-service modules completed. Transportation routes and schedules have been posted online and made available to all schools. In the area of food and nutrition services, menus have been completed and food stock commodities have all been scheduled for delivery in anticipation of school opening. All of the required inspections, training, and in-service modules are on track to be completed as well. Finally, the online meal benefit application system is up and available for use by the public. This summer has been sort of a historic year in technology. The technology department has replaced approximately 18,996 Chromebooks, as well as added 3,581 new Chromebooks, laptops, and other computers to the inventory. They also refreshed or cyclically replaced 8,176 existing leased laptops and desktop computers. Technology has also installed or upgraded untold numbers of smart boards, Wi-Fi antennas, routers, and switches to ensure that schools are poised to support our 21st century digital learner. In the area of business and school support services, school site budgets have been uploaded and are available. Any remaining textbook and other materials of instruction are being delivered and distributed to schools. Finally, all student information systems and grading support systems have been tested and are operational. As you've heard, a lot of preparation and effort has been expended over these past 2 months to ensure that we are ready and able to instruct and support our students. Each year there's only one first day of school, and we remain committed to ensuring that this year will be one of the best for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. With that, we'll turn it back over to you and the board if you have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm curious, could you tell us a little bit more about the role of the school climate resource teacher?
School's climate resource teacher is going to support our restorative practices initiative, and they will be working with school-based staff to help train them further in the restorative practices process so that they can implement that with fidelity. So they'll be assigned specific schools, specific clusters. There'll be a support for the schools.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you very much, and I could certainly go into each area and say thank you and point to the great things that you're doing, and I'll just say above all thank you to each area. And curriculum development is always near and dear to me, and thank you for mentioning the 4 C's and the applicability to workforce development. I was just in Boston yesterday talking about that. Now the 4 C's are becoming the 7 C's, so we'll talk offline about that. I want to just ask one specific question, and actually, Mrs. Kutchis, I know you're hiring because we had 106 additional teachers funded. This year, this summer, was probably abnormal, but for a good reason. So thank you to you and your team for that extra effort. Mrs. Egan, my one question, you may not be able to answer right now, but if we could get the information, the newly funded guidance counselors, if the board can be made aware of what schools they were assigned to. I know that we've had a couple of schools in particular, parents from some schools have really come before us to say, the need is strong, and even some guidance counselors have testified where we have high enrollments and only one guidance counselor. So if the board can at least get a list of where those new guidance counselors were assigned, I'd be greatly appreciative.
We'll do
Thank
that.
you.
Ms. Uria.
If we could also, on where the psychologists are going, that would be helpful too. Thank you. Just want to add that.
Mr. Butcher.
Thank you, Madam President. At the end of this last school year, and actually throughout the last school year, there were a lot of various incidents of racial tension, things of that nature. I know that the Office of Equity, based on the presentation that we had before us as a board, laid out the plan. Now that we have the school year coming up, could we just highlight by chance steps that have been taking place over the summer? I know Dr. Alato and a lot of your staff has been out in the community speaking with various folks. What type of steps are we trying to implement or put in place for the beginning of the school year to make sure that the resources are out there for the various administrators and principals as well as the parents to make sure that we can at least anticipate or try to be in front of any potential issues that are out there?
Sure. Much of the focus for us has been during the summer, and now as we're bringing new teachers and bring principals on board, we've got people back in the building, is the focus on professional development. So part of the new teacher training is they go through their orientation last week with our principals this past Monday. The conversations are started and ongoing as teachers come into the building and they have their pre-service training before the school year gets started. These will certainly be part of the conversations that they'll be having, among many, but this will be a large part of the conversations that they'll be having about, and much of it focuses around equitable practices, and that's a lot of the work that Dr. Gillens and her team have been doing, is focusing on equitable practices and what that looks like in the classroom as we work to reach and teach every student, not the students in the middle, not the students on just one end or the other, but all of our students. And that is really the emphasis of our strategic plan that this board recently adopted, which is all means all. And so we're focusing on what the equitable practices look like in the classroom, how we're reaching and teaching all of those students, and then how we're reaching and teaching our families, right? Part of that all means all is that being that welcoming environment into the school. We want everybody to feel welcome in the building, the students, the teachers, as well as any of our parents and our community members. So those are things, the conversations that are ongoing, and professional development. You know that we've got 4 professional development days built into the calendar, built into your calendar, that focus on exactly these issues of equity, that lessons are produced, and these we have half days for our students, so 4 times during the year the staffs in each building can focus on exactly those issues.
And quickly, Dr. Alato, can you just confirm, because I know I missed it unfortunately, but there at the board retreat for the board recently, was there not implicit bias training that was provided to all the board members?
Correct. So as you know, as your colleagues know, that our board has a tradition of having a summer retreat, a summer workshop. Every year, the themes could change based on the needs and desires of a particular board. It was this board's desire to go through some implicit bias training, and that was implicit bias training that Dr. Gillens and Mrs. Jackson and others brought to the board. I was not part of that. I understand it was well received, and it was a worthwhile day. So much so, and if you don't mind me bragging a little bit about our incredible team, it just so happened that members of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education were in the room. They listened to the training and sort of heard what was going on. They were impressed, and they've asked our team to come to their annual conference to present that to boards of education from across the state. So we have accepted that invitation. Yes? We have accepted the invitation. I wanted to make sure before I could. We've accepted the invitation, and Dr. Gillens and Mrs. Jackson and others will travel down to Ocean City. You'll be there. You'll be able to sign up for that session. But the Maryland Association Boards of Education have asked our team to come and do that same implicit bias training for all members, make it available to all members of boards of education from all 24 LEAs. And I think that's quite a feather in the cap of our team and the dedication and professionalism and knowledge and skill of our team, and I thank them for that.
I appreciate you guys getting in front of a lot of these different issues, so I appreciate the work. My final point, I understand that we have a Office of Equity also has like this roundtable discussion group in the community. Is that still going forward?
So we have talked about beginning. I've been part of other counties that have done some of this work, and we've talked very briefly about beginning some community. We haven't come up with a name, but community roundtables around race, around ethnicity, around communication. And we're sort of going to probably do that around maybe a book study and go into a particular community and start there. We'll invite people from an entire cluster at the middle, at the elementary, middle, and high school, and bring folks together maybe once a month under our leadership and direction in sort of a professional development setting to start some of those community conversations. We've begun that conversation. Montgomery County Public Schools has been doing it for a number of years. I look at your colleague to your right, who was a teacher, a longtime teacher in Montgomery County, and that was something that I grew up on when I was a principal in Montgomery County. We're going to sort of model it. We've started talking to their folks about how they put that together and how that's worked over the years. And so we've just started that conversation about how we can roll that out this fall.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I just want to briefly thank you. This is my last readiness for schools, and I am, for the last number of years, always impressed. It's my one of my favorite presentations because I think it highlights all the hard work that each of you have done, and our staff, our teams, and it is greatly appreciated. I hear over and over how great things are going in terms of preparation. I had several people I know who were newly hired. They said they'd never been to such a great beginning open teaching orientation. They were impressed, excited, and so I just want to commend you all because each one of you I've known for many years, and I'm going to hate to say goodbye. I may come back for the opening. Just
if I could, and thank you, Mrs. Nally. We will, after 10 years of listening to the readiness and you preparing the school after all those years to be ready, we are certainly gonna miss you. But you do understand and appreciate. This is, we don't get 2.5 months off during the summer, this team. They've asked me that every year, and I still say no. Because it's a tremendous amount of work to get ready for 83,000 students and 12,000 employees. There's a lot happening in our buildings in the construction area. There's a lot in materials of instruction and ordering. There's a lot in HR. There's a lot in hiring and placing. There's a lot in curriculum writing to get ready for the new school year, to update curriculum, to update the courses that you've approved, to deliver those. And we take advantage of much time as we can for professional development. This is, what you have before you is an amazing team. They're incredible leaders, and they're dedicated to children. One of the things that you may not have caught in that conversation, as Mrs. Batten was talking about curriculum writing, through the leadership of Mrs. Batten and Dr. McMahon, we've invited the other LEAs to join us in curriculum writing, and that's unheard of. We produced a website. We've asked other LEAs to join us. It's been sort of a slow start. But we've invited them to take our curriculum and use it. We're all writing to the same standards. We're writing to the same assessments, same statewide assessments. And some of our colleagues around the state have started to join in and say, hey, we're writing to the same algebra, or we're writing to the same second grade standards. Let us join in and do that. And so that's kind of exciting. And we've been the leaders in that, not me, Mrs. Batten and Dr. McMahon. It's been their vision, and it's really taking off a little bit at a time. We're very excited about that. So we're excited about the school year. We're soon to have kids back in the building, and that's what we live for. So thank you.
Ms. Korbelak.
I was just going to echo what everybody had to say, that those of us in education know this is our Happy New Year coming up. And we just appreciate how hard you guys work over the summer to make that first day of school so special for our teachers and our students.
And I'll just echo, I think if you listen carefully, what everybody said is very clear that an awful lot of work goes on all summer. This is not taking off. And when I heard 300 curriculum writers, that's teachers who are coming back and working in the summer to help develop curriculum. And you know, human resources, it's at their busiest during the summer. And so all of these things never end as they get going. And so I'm excited for the first day of school. Always am. Still get butterflies and have a hard time sleeping, even though my kids sleep like rocks. And I'm like, first day of school. So thank y'all all so much for everything you've done. And we're looking forward to, what is it? We got 10 days? 10 days. No pressure. No pressure. Thank you. So, is there any public comment on school readiness before we move on? Okay. All right. Item 2.09 is the Crofton Area High School update, another exciting one.
Welcome to the team. To the members of the board, thank you for indulging us. We thought we would give you an update about sort of where we are and give you an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the process of not just the construction, but how we'll hire and place staff in the building, programs, and those kinds of things. It's been a long time since we've opened a brand new high school from the ground up. You'll hear about that in the presentation. And while we are several years away, it'll be 2020 when we move into that building and open September of 2020, this brand new high school, our 14th high school. There's a lot that has to happen between now and then, and we want to keep you updated during that process. So the team will introduce themselves. Welcome.
Yep. Good morning, President Hummer, Vice President Gillian, members of the board, Dr. Arlato. For the record, I'm Lisa Seaman Crawford, and with me is
Greg Stewart, Senior Manager Planning.
Good morning, Monique Jackson, Deputy Superintendent for Student and School Support.
Good morning, McMahon, Deputy Superintendent for Academics and Strategic Initiatives.
Crofton Area High School is the first new high school since Broadneck was built in 1982. This timeline displays the cluster of high schools built in the mid to late 70s. Earlier studies and enrollment projections confirmed by the 2015 MGT study established the need for a new high school, and it is now under construction. Crofton Area High School is budgeted at $135 million and is designed for a state-rated capacity of 1,696 students. The site plan indicates the location of the school on the property. To orient you, located at the bottom right-hand or southeast is Crofton Middle School, which borders on Route 424 and Underwood Road. The main entrance to the high school campus will be off 424 at the current Crofton Park entrance, with a secondary exit onto Underwood Road at the traffic circle. As you come through the property, you will see the parent drop-off, bus loop, and the stadium, tennis courts, and several fields will reside on the former Cardinal Field area. The second turf field, MP5, or Multi-Purpose Field 5, is located along the main entrance drive. Parking is strategically placed around the school and fields to accommodate staff, students, visitors, and spectators for sporting events. I'm going to start unconventionally with reading the floor plan from right to left, or southeast to northwest, because that's the way it's being constructed. The first area is the cafeteria, kitchen, and service areas colored in orange and gray. Next, the gymnasium, weight room, and team rooms in dark pink and yellow. Moving left is the main entrance, administrative space, and auditorium. And finally, the three-story classroom wing. The cross-section through the building at the bottom of the slide indicates how the building was designed to respond to the existing topography. The aerial view shows the sequence of construction again from right to left. Area 1, cafeteria, kitchen, where roofing is underway along with mechanical and electrical work. Next is the gym area. All load-bearing walls are complete and steel joist installation is ongoing. The next section, the main entrance, auditorium. You can see the fan shape of the auditorium slab. All remaining slabs in that section are being finished and masonry bearing walls are set to start. The classroom wing is being constructed from the top of the screen towards us. Slab installation followed by steel erection. The site work has been affected by the tremendous amount of rain we've had recently, but progress is still being made. Overall, the project is 25% complete, with the building being slightly ahead of schedule and the site work slightly behind. The schedule demonstrates the progress of design and construction through building occupancy. We began the schematic design in April 2016, and bid packages for the site and building went out in June and September 2017, respectively. The site work started in October 2017 and the building several months later. The areas in red indicate completion dates for the site and building, and the purple vertical line indicates current status. We are on schedule to complete for the 2020-2021 school year. And now I'll turn it over to Greg, who will discuss redistricting.
Maryland Education Article 4-109 gives the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County the right to establish school boundaries. Redistricting in Anne Arundel County is governed by Board Policies JAA and Regulation JAA-RA. Redistricting committee are comprised of 2 parents or guardians from each of the affected schools, and those are approved by the principal and the regional area superintendent. The planning office will provide assistance to the committee in accordance with the redistricting regulations, and various departments within the school system will be made available to assist the redistricting process as needed. The following schools are included in the redistricting process for the Crofton area. You have the Arundel and South River High School. You have Arundel Crofton Middle Schools, Crofton Elementary, Crofton Meadows, Crofton Woods, Nantucket, and Piney Orchard. This map depicts the location of the Crofton Area High School in the center there with a star. The circle, the black circle, is a 1.5 mile radius, which is the maximum estimated walk radius if kids could walk in a straight line. And basically that establishes the outer limits, but we look at safe routes to school. Transportation will look at that as the time comes. The 2 boundaries, you see a dark green line that represents the boundary between the Arundel High School attendance zone and the South River attendance zone. The blue represents Crofton Elementary School. Yellow is Crofton Woods. The orange is Crofton Meadows, and the red is Nantucket. Those 4 elementary schools go to Crofton Middle School. And then we also have Nantucket, Piney Orchard up in the top. That was their green school, which is also included. Crofton Meadows is unique. It's one of our last remaining schools. The elementary school actually goes to 2 different high schools. We had one that we fixed last year in the Annapolis redistricting, and that was the site across Severn River over the David Taylor area, where they went to Annapolis Middle but went to the Broadneck High School. So those will be fixed when the Arnold Elementary School open. As far as schedule goes, we are in the process right now of forming the committee. And next is basically once that's formed, they'll do an organizational meeting, choose a chairman and a secretary for the committee. They will have weekly meetings with the committee, and they will have those open to the public. They will finish up their report and make a recommendation to the superintendent, which would be in November. And then in December, the superintendent will make his recommendation to the board. With that, he will also include the committee's recommendation. In January, the Board of Ed will take up what option or options they want to see and go out to public hearing for the public. And in February, the public briefing will occur with staff, followed by a public hearing of those options in March. And then finally, in April of 2019, the board would vote and adopt the selected option for the redistricting of the Crofton area.
Good morning again. It is my pleasure to present to you information on the students, the staff, and the scheduling for Crofton Area High School. The school will open in September of 2020 for students in grade 9 and 10 only. The school will add grade 11 in September of 2021 and grade 12 in September of 2022. Funding requests for staffing will begin in fiscal year 2020 as budgeted, recommended by the superintendent in December of 2018, and it will continue for the next 3 years. The principal will be in place by July of 2029, and this principal will oversee the hiring of the remainder of the staff. Athletics will begin in the year 2020-2021 and will continue throughout that school year with junior varsity schedule or a varsity JV schedule status for the 2021-2022 school year as to be determined.
And so now programmatically, what goes on the inside? So we're happy to tell you that the full suite of academic curricular offerings will be available at Crofton Area High School. There will be no magnet program there. However, there will be the nationally recognized pre-engineering program known as Project Lead the Way. Beginning this winter, we will meet under the direction of Mary Talar and her team, her signature program team. We will be meeting with community in multiple meetings over the course of 18 months to identify and announce a signature, that workforce relevant theme for the new high school. And then, when the principal is named, as Mrs. Jackson noted, in July, they will form teams to begin thinking about the naming of Crofton Area High School. And they will bring those options, suggested options, back to you for board approval. Similarly, he or she will form other teams, including students, to actually choose the mascot and colors for the school. And those suggestions will come back to the superintendent for approval. And now at this time, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Gorblack.
Just curious why Piney Orchard is in the mix.
If you look at the boundary, the Woodwardville area, there's some very interesting boundary lines along that, and whenever we do redistricting, we try to encompass all areas so we don't have to do it twice. And since we're forming the committee, we felt it was important to include that area for that.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. So, in indicating that Arundel and South River High School will be impacted in the redistricting discussions, understanding that the capacity of Crofton right now is estimated at approximately 1,600 to 1,700 kids. Are Arundel and South River currently 1,600 students over capacity? How much over capacity are those two schools?
They're approximately probably 400 plus over. Those schools, both of them are over capacity, and with the development that's coming in the area, it was projected to go higher.
So do we see a domino effect happening as we remove the load from Arundel and South River? Could other neighboring high schools be impacted as well?
Absolutely, and certainly we're going to be looking at the county when we take on Old Mill. There's going to be significant redistricting in the county at that time. And again, what we try to do is balance where we can. Certainly we don't want to build seats if we don't need them, and the state doesn't participate if we don't need them. So we try to find balance between the schools, but at the same time we're looking at what's coming in from the development side of the county. There's been a tremendous amount of development on the west part of the county, and so we're basically trying to make some future arrangements for those for that development.
So with all the development in West County, then we could foresee, like you said, Old Mill, and then possibly Meade being impacted as well. Would it be wise then to consider a larger scale of redistricting at one time? Is there a potential that a child could be moved between high schools multiple times through iterative redistricting processes?
We try not to do that. However, depending on how the enrollments continue to grow, certainly that could happen in certain neighborhoods. I mean, again, we don't redistrict areas. We usually go through a cycle throughout the county, and by the time we'd say get back to the Arundel, it may be 5-10 years from now, so that student wouldn't be necessarily redistricted twice. Rarely do we ever go and redistrict the same area, 2 years apart, for example. It's usually, it's cyclic.
But it has been 40 years since we have a new high school, so
yeah.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? So mine, I think you said the principal will be forming committees with students, and they will get to have a real say in the identity of the school moving forward, the colors and the mascot and the name and the whole bit. They get to have a real part of that. So, and also, as we're talking about the redistricting, so since we're transitioning in, so we're not doing all 4 grades at one time, so the impact on the other 2 high schools is not going to be immediate for Arundel and South River for students coming. It's going to be a gradual over 4 years. And then we also know we have that new school effect, that when a new building is built, we have a lot of children families that bring their children back to public schools, so we could see an uptick in that. So it will take 3-4 years for us to see the full enrollment that's coming in. Is that accurate to say?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Mr. Butcher.
Real quick, when I'm hearing about the good work that's going on for purposes of this new school, I think about the emails that I'm getting from some of the members in the community that are wondering why their schools aren't being rebuilt or there's no high school there. And you guys hinted to it earlier. How are we picking which schools are going to be built or which new construction projects are going to take place?
Those are all set by the MGT study we did in 2015 based on condition and development coming in, and that's what our capital budget 6-year plan reflects.
And this is all part of that 6-year capital budget, right?
And as Crofton is finished, we're moving forward onto Old Mill, into the 2 Old Mill replacements. So you will not get a break from planning high schools. It will go straight into the next 2.
We love it.
So, are there any further board questions? All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Are there any board questions or public questions or comments? Okay. So that's exciting. You come on up.
Good morning. It's just a real quick question for them with regards to the redistricting. I know a lot of...
Please give your name first.
Latika Hicks. I live in Crofton, and everyone is excited about the new high school. So I think one of the main questions is whether or not there's a chance that students who live in Crofton will not be able to attend Crofton High School.
That will be determined, the students that attend that will be determined by the redistricting team they set up that incorporates parents from every school in there, and they will all come up with a plan together of which students, what the boundaries will be.
Right, and as the board policy, they referenced the board policy that we try and include as any schools that could possibly be impacted. They might not be, but they could possibly be impacted as we look at boundaries and that 1.5-mile radius away from as we build this brand new high school. So in essence, we have to create an attendance zone for a brand new school, or a school that does not exist today. For 2020, we have to create an attendance zone of which students will attend that. So I couldn't tell you street by street right now which students, where they live now, whether they'd go to Arundel or they would go to the new Crofton, for example. We just don't, but that's part of what The committee will sit down, our demographers will sit down, we'll give them pin maps. The committee, as they ask questions, will give them pin maps, for instance, about where all the students live that attend Arundel, that attend South River, and that could possibly attend Crofton, and then they'll make recommendations to the superintendent, to me, and then eventually I'll make a recommendation to the board. That then goes forward to public hearing. The board will then take public testimony on 2 different occasions for anybody that wants to, that agrees with the recommendations, does not, or has suggested changes. The board will then, by April of 19, will make a decision about what that attendance boundary will look like for the new Crofton Area High School. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I also wanted to know if the slideshow that we just saw, would that be available to the public?
Yeah, we'll post that on the website. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, that was a lot of some great presentations. Now we will move on to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda and who has signed up prior to the board establishing the agenda order a few minutes ago may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. A tone will sound when time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. Questions may be posed by speakers, but any answers will count as part of the 3-minute limit. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Handouts should be given to the board assistant. If you did not sign up in time to speak today, you may submit written testimony to the board's assistant today or via email at any time. Okay, and we have 2 cards today, Leslie Coble and Lisa Van Buskirk.
Good morning, Dr. Hummer, or I'm President Hummer, Vice President Gilliland, members of the board, and Dr. Arlotto. My name is Leslie Coble, and I'm here to plead that the Board of Ed please fund bus transportation for the NJROTC program. My daughter will be attending Broadneck High School. She's an incoming 9th grader. She has signed up for the ROTC program. And self-transporting her is going to be an extreme hardship for me. I have a desk job. I'm the community administrator for the Cape St. Clair Improvement Association. I love the job. It's a wonderful community, but I am there to serve my community, and I need to be in my office. For me to leave that one-person office to transport my daughter is going to be very, very difficult. It's actually, truthfully, causing me a lot of stress, but I'll be darned if I'm going to tell my daughter, no, you can't have this opportunity. Sorry. I have a son that is entering the Marine Corps this Sunday, going off to boot camp. We are very, support the military in our family. And it just seems like the school system does not, when it does not provide bus transportation for the ROTC program. It provides bus transportation from Broadneck to Annapolis High School for the art program, the visual arts program. It provides bus transportation for students from all over the county to Broadneck for the music program. The counselor at Broadneck High told me that a lot of those buses just have 1 or 2 students. I just don't understand why the students cannot get transportation provided by the school system. It's a credit class. It is supported by, it's an actual credit class for the program, but yet they can't be transported. And it just, it blows my mind that we're just told, well, you got to find a way. You got to find a way to get your child there. Most people work, most parents work. We have to. We pay our taxes. Would really appreciate transportation provided by the school system for our students. That's basically it.
Thank you, Ms. Coble. Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you. Dr. Arlotto, are there any grants available through DOD to support transport?
I don't have a specific answer to that. There could be. that's something that we certainly could look into. That's a really high quality suggestion. This is not new. Rest assured, I'll take your suggestion back to the team and we'll talk about it. Your comparison of the JROTC programs and magnet programs is not apples to oranges, and what I mean by that, in the quality that it is that we developed our magnet programs to support students coming from out of jurisdiction to a school for a program. That's not the way our JROTC programs were developed. They were developed for in that particular high school program only. So we have 3 JROTC programs. We've got the Marine Corps, a new Marine Corps program at Northeast. We have the Army program at Meade High School, and of course we've got the long-standing and wonderful Navy program at Annapolis. Those are in-school programs only. They were never developed to allow students to come from outside that school community into Annapolis from Broad Neck or South River or Southern, where we do have students that come and join that wonderful program. We want to continue to support that, so we've allowed people to register and take advantage of it, but we've been very clear that we've not been able to provide transportation because the students are coming from different places, and we don't know from one year to the next that they'll stay with the program or enroll or not enroll, and so we have chosen not to. I'll certainly go back and take a look at the numbers with the team, I'll promise you that, but it was never developed to be magnet to serve students from outside that specific school. It was only developed to support students in at Northeast, at Meade, or at Annapolis only. And we've allowed parents and students to take advantage of it because it's an awesome opportunity. We think it's great, but we've been very clear up front that we've not been able to provide transportation. That would be a choice.
Understood. Just so you know that Broad Neck has 43 students in the program. So that is a fairly large number, and I appreciate that, but I still stand with pleading for help with transportation. I really, even if the PVA bus that comes back to Broad Neck High from Annapolis, even if our students were to get transportation one way, it would alleviate the hardship a good bit. If we could somehow finagle the funding, not finagle, but if we could somehow make that work, that would really be helpful.
I just wanted to add, I was in your situation for 3 years. My son went from Arundel to Annapolis for NJROTC, and the commander did work with our families. We had far less, like maybe 5 kids that went from Arundel, to help us with carpooling and figuring it out. So I would also reach out to the commander as well.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coble.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Dr. Arlotto, Board of Education. Lisa Van Buskirk with Start School Later, Anne Arundel County. Congratulations, the software that was purchased 3 years ago is finally running. And so there are some improvements in some schedules, and some have not been improved. The biomedical bus from South County to Glen Burnie now starts its run at 5:57, a full 20 minutes later than last year, which I think is a success. It's scheduled to arrive at 7:10 and is no longer the earliest bus in the county. That is great news. But on the other hand, a few other biomedical buses arrive at 6:47, 6:50, and 6:52 at Glen Burnie. Why are they arriving up to 43 minutes before the bell? Most other Glen Burnie buses are scheduled to arrive at 7:10 and even as late as 7:18. I understand that not all buses can arrive at the same time to make it work, but if some are arriving at 12 minutes before the bell and some 43 minutes before the bell, there's a bit of a disparity between that. Likewise, at North County, STEM buses are scheduled to arrive as early as 7:42, a time when 1 or 2 of those North County buses for the regular routes haven't even started their routes yet, but they're already at North County High School. Out of the 40 bus routes for North County, only 7 are scheduled to arrive after 7 a.m., and all by about 7:05. In contrast, at Severna Park, 7 of 30 buses are delivered to the school before 7 a.m. Why is there such a discrepancy of delivery windows before and after 7 a.m. between those 2 schools? So what is the standard for delivery time before the first bell? Are the students on the buses that arrive before 7 a.m. allowed to get off the bus and go into school? If not, why are they arriving so early if they're being kept on the buses themselves? The honors for the earliest bus in the county now goes to Route 85 of Old Mill High School. Last year, the route was started at 6:29, It now starts at 5:16 a.m. according to the schedule posted yesterday. That's correct, an hour and 13 minutes earlier than last year, and a full 2 hours and 14 minutes before the bell. From the listing of stops that have cut and pasted and provided to you, the stops look to be the same. So how is it that a route that used to take 20 minutes total from first to last stop now takes 21 minutes to go half a mile along Indian Landing Road and another 18 minutes to drive along Severn Chapel Road? That makes up 40 minutes of that 2 hour 15-minute bus ride. Other buses that have shifted significantly earlier are Brynack High School bus 410. Last year it started at 6:50 in the morning. This year it starts at 6:02. North County bus 16. Last year it started at 6:43. This year at 5:59 a.m. Old Mill bus 83 used to start at 6:43. Now it picks up at 6:08. So we can do better, because if I was providing this kind of material in my 24 years of the Coast Guard and 8 years as a fire protection engineer, the lack of quality control presented on the website last night would have gotten me reprimanded. And I think and I know that we can do better as a school system to put out quality information for our parents. I and my colleagues have suggested multiple times that there are resources readily and locally available to help AACPS with software implementation. Ms. Sasso tried to bring some of that information before you 18 months ago, and you declined. So when will you acknowledge the Transportation Department could use some assistance? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buskirk. Mr. Bitcher.
Madam President, I know that this is supposed to be a public comment session, but does the board have any control, Dr. Alato, on bus schedules? Do we have control on
Does this board? This board does not. No, that's under my
So
purview.
if I tell you that I want my kid to be picked up at 6:50 so I can hurry up and get her out of the house, and I want her picked up in front of my house, can I do that?
You could ask, yes.
Will you do it?
No.
Okay. What would be the more effective approach for people that have issues with bus schedules and things of that nature? If they have issues, where should they direct that information?
So I'd ask that they'll call their school or call the transportation office. I was on the phone early this morning with our Director of Transportation, Mr. Douglas, about some of these very same issues. We purposely typically we put our bus schedules out 1 week in advance of the start of school. With the new software and us changing and us learning, it was put out 2 weeks in advance. So we are going through sort of, and I'm going to call it crowdsourcing, right? It was not purposeful. We put it out as best as our people saw it, but they are literally changing bus schedules by the hour. So what you saw last night and yesterday could very well have changed by last night and this morning and 2 hours from now. So that's work that's ongoing. Their team is working at a feverish pitch. So we'll ask so we've got a certain number of eyes looking at these, and they've been looking at it for days and days and weeks and months, and we are far from perfect. So we've made some mistakes, no question about it. And so as people are seeing things that are drastically different than their children are used to or seems out of place, call the transportation office, report it, or call the school. That information is getting the transportation office, and they are literally changing schedules by the week. But we actually release the schedules a week in advance so we can try and close that gap and make some of these corrections further from the start of the school year. We are far from perfect, but we are making headway. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Items 4.01 to 4.16 minus item 4.12, which was removed from the agenda earlier, are all award of contracts. Do I have a motion to bundle these items? Okay. Ms. Connolly, would you please call the roll for bundling?
Mrs. Kornblatt?
Aye.
Ms. Urea?
Aye.
Mr. Dolan?
Aye.
Mrs. Nally? Aye. Mr. Reinhardt? Aye. Mr. Butcher?
Aye.
And Mrs. Hummer?
Aye. So, all right. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the board approve contracts as they appear on today's agenda, 4.01 through 4.11 and 4.13 through 4.16.
Okay. All right. So, are there any board questions or comments? I have one. On the first one, item 4.01, the alarm components, is this part of our regular thing, or is this funding for this item coming from the additional security money that we received?
This is traditional money. It's
Okay.
funded out of the operating budget, not the capital budget.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions? All right. Then we will call the vote. Ms. Connolly, would you please call the roll on agenda items 4.01 through
Mrs.
4.06?
Corbelak.
Aye.
Ms. Urea.
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland.
Aye.
Mrs. Nally. Mr. Reinhardt. Mr. Butcher.
Aye.
And Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
That's 7 in the affirmative and 0 in the negative.
All right. Motion passes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stansky. Item 5.01 is administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and or appointed.
All right. So, Ms. Connolly, would you please call the roll on agenda item 5.01?
Mrs. Corbelak.
Aye.
Ms. Urea.
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland.
Aye.
Mrs. Nally. Mr. Reinhardt. Mr. Butcher.
Aye.
Mrs. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Motion passes. All right. Item 5.02 is personnel. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
Ms. Connolly, would you please call the roll on agenda item 5.02?
Mrs. Corbelak.
Aye.
Ms. Urea.
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland. Mrs. Nally. Mr. Reinhardt. Mr. Butcher.
Aye.
Mrs. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Motion passes. Item 5.03 is another action item, ratification of the negotiated agreement between the Board of Education and the Association of Educational Leaders. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the tentative agreement between the Board of Education and the Association of Educational Leaders, AEL.
All right. And we do have a presentation.
Yes. Good morning, Ms. Hummer, Dr. Arlotto, and members of the board. My name is Melissa Rawls, and I am the Director of Employee Relations. As you are aware, the fiscal authorities for Anne Arundel County did not provide sufficient funds in the FY 2019 budget to fully fund the negotiated agreement between the Board of Education and the Association of Educational Leaders. Accordingly, pursuant to provisions of the Education Article and the AEL negotiated agreement, the parties entered into renegotiations and successfully reached a tentative agreement subject to your approval today. The summary of changes as agreed upon by both parties include the following: a 1% COLA to be granted to all Unit 2 employees retroactively effective July 1, 2018, and a 0.7631% mid-year COLA to be provided to all Unit 2 employees as well. The negotiating teams diligently worked to reach an agreement that best serves the interest of all AEL members and recognizes their commitment to AACPS students, staff, and community. I would like to thank President Will Myers and the AEL team for their ongoing partnership with the board. On August 13, 2018, AEL approved this agreement, and I respectfully request your approval and ratification of the noted summary of changes. Thank you.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you. So, assume the board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off, sir. That's quite all right. Just a little commentary here this morning. Once again, good morning to President Hummer, board members, and Dr. Arlotto. For the record, I'm William Myers. I am president of the Association of Educational Leaders and the principal at South River High School. I would like to begin by complimenting Ms. Rawls and her team for the professional manner in which we were able to conduct negotiations this year. Although we were many times in disagreement over many items, we remained collegial and civil in all of our conversations and have reached this tentative agreement. I would like to make it clear that the members of my association are not particularly happy or satisfied with this agreement. For the second time in 4 years, we have accepted a contract at less than full value in order to assure that all of our members receive an increase in their compensation for their efforts in behalf of the children in Anne Arundel County. This is a result of failure to include an equivalency clause for the members who have stepped out. Now, for your information, those people who have stepped out have over 40 years of service in our county. And frankly, it's my opinion that they should be receiving a bonus instead of denial because of their longevity in our system. Now, on Monday of this week, I attended a meeting along with all the principals in Anne Arundel County, and our superintendent, Dr. Arlotto, delivered an inspirational message. His words were relevant and they were meaningful. He was sincere when he clearly said, "We are like family." He understands the value of relationships, and he rightfully stated, "There's no success without you," referring to the principals in that room. If that is truly the case, I would encourage that the value of that leadership be a major consideration as we begin negotiations for the next year. I would also request that we begin that process before the superintendent's budget is presented to you, the board. In the past, negotiations after budgets have been struck have borne little fruit for the members of AEL. I look forward to a collective effort to address these issues in our upcoming negotiation process. And I'm really excited about the potential for yet another great school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Mr. Reinhardt.
It's hard to follow that. So, just one question. When would we anticipate AEL unit members receiving the back pay?
So can I first address the implementation of the enhancement? Our payroll staff is, once we finish presenting before you this morning, will move forward to include the compensation enhancement in the next payroll, which will include the 1% increase. We will continue to work to provide the retroactive payment as quickly as possible, and I would imagine that would occur within the next 2 payroll cycles.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? So thank you to everyone for working together, and
thank you.
Be ready before the school starts. And so now, Ms. Connolly, would you please call the roll on agenda item 5.03?
Mrs. Corbelot.
Aye.
Ms. Urea. Mr. Gilliland.
Aye.
Mrs. Nally.
Aye.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Aye.
Mr. Butcher. Mrs. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
And so the AEL contract is ratified. Thank you. Or not ratified, confirmed on our side. All right. Item 5.04 is an action item, high school courses taken by middle school students, policy IIF. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. As this is the 3rd reading, I'm recommending approval of the board, approval by this board for policy IIF, subject to final correction for style and format.
Are there any board questions or comments? All right. Okay. Ms. Connolly, would you call the roll for agenda item 5.04?
Mrs. Corbelot.
Aye.
Ms. Urea. Mr. Gilliland. Mrs. Nally. Mr. Reinhardt.
Aye.
Mr. Butcher. Mrs. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
All right. So policy IIF is passed. All right. Item 5.05 is a second reading for policy JEJ, vehicles prohibited on school property. Ms. Ortiz.
Good morning. For the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel. You have policy JEJ, vehicles prohibited on school property before you on second reading. We did not receive any public comment on the proposed revisions. However, I did want to point out, based on the suggestion from the board on first reading, we clarified under the position C2, unless granted written permission by AACPS as identified in subsection 1 above, vehicles, then the following vehicles would be prohibited. And Ms. Korbelak raised some valid, questions about the clarity of that, so we went ahead and clarified that.
Are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? Okay, this will come back to us next meeting for third reading.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Item 5.06 is policy BCB, public participation. This is also a second reading. Ms. Ortiz.
So we have policy BCB, public participation. Again, this policy did not receive any public comments during the 30-day public comment period.
Okay. All right. Are there any board questions or comments on this policy? Is there any public comment? All right. And this one will also come back to us next meeting for third reading as well.
Correct.
Okay. Item 5.07 is an action item rescinding of policies. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of rescinding policies GABB, JCG, ID, JCN, KFA, and KFB.
Okay. Ms. Ortiz.
So we, Dr. Arlotto has recommended that these policies be rescinded. As I stated at the last meeting, these policies have been incorporated into other policies and guidelines at AACPS, so they are not needed at this time. And so they were up for a 30-day public comment period as well. We did not receive any public comments during that time.
Are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All right, Ms. Connolly, would you please call the roll for agenda item 5.07?
Mrs. Korbelak.
Aye.
Ms. Urea.
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland. Aye. Mrs. Nally. Aye. Mr. Reinhardt. Aye. Mr. Butcher. Aye. Mrs. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 5.08 is Crofton Woods Elementary School Classroom Addition Schematic Design. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the Crofton Woods Elementary School Classroom Addition schematic design.
Second.
All right. So are there any questions or comments about the Crofton Woods addition? I'll have one. How many rooms are we looking? How many classrooms?
This will be a 6-classroom addition.
6-classroom addition. Okay. And this is not specifically a kindergarten addition. This is a full-size classroom addition.
This is a full-size classroom addition.
All right. Any questions or comments? Any public comment? All right. Ms. Connolly, would you please call the roll on agenda item 5.08?
Mrs. Korbelak. Ms.
Aye.
Urea.
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland. Aye. Mrs. Nally.
Aye.
Mr. Reinhardt. Aye. Mr. Butcher. Aye. Mrs. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
All right. Let's move right along. Item 5.09 is the Linthicum Elementary Kindergarten Edition schematic design. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of Lithcomb Elementary School Kindergarten Edition schematic design.
All right. Are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? That's all right. Then, Ms. Connolly, would you please call the roll on agenda item 5.09?
Mrs. Korbelak.
Aye.
Ms. Urea. Aye. Mr. Gilliland. Aye. Mrs. Nally. Aye. Mr. Reinhardt. Aye. Mr. Butcher. And Mrs. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
All right. On to Millersville. Item 5.10 is Millersville Elementary Kindergarten Addition Schematic Design. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the Millersville Elementary School Kindergarten Addition Schematic Design.
Okay. I do have a question on this one. We're doing all these kindergarten. How many of our elementary schools still remain that need a kindergarten addition? Can we, I know I'm throwing that out there to you. You may not know off the top of your head, but.
I don't recall off the top of my head, but we will get you that information.
Okay,
yes, we are winding down.
And it was how many years ago that we went to all-day kindergarten, and we're still
2007.
2007, and we are still catching up to have the appropriate classroom space for that. But we're moving ahead, and I think along with us, we just had the wonderful presentation on Crofton High School and school readiness of how many projects are going on, and here's 3 more great large projects to expand our schools. So there's an awful lot going on in capital improvements and construction. So, Mr. Reinhardt.
I'd just like a little clarification in understanding the capacity table on page 3. So we see the existing capacity is 430/382. So I'm assuming the difference between 430 and 382 comes from the regional program.
That is correct.
Yes.
So when we move to the proposed capacity, we see that at 410, but there's no slash. So where did that regional program go?
The regional program is stay in place. There's a combination of calculations that go into place with the SRCs. The current music room is being used as a classroom. So there's a calculation that takes place that deducts a certain amount of children from the SRC related to the music room. So that's why you see that variance it's a reflection of the 382 versus the 410.
Okay. So we can assure parents at the school that it is getting bigger.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any further questions or comments? Any public comment? All right, Ms. Connolly, would you please call the roll for agenda item 5.10?
Mrs. Corbelak?
Aye.
Ms. Urea? Mr. Gilliland?
Run, Patty.
Mrs. Nally? Mr. Reinhardt? Mr. Butcher?
Aye.
And Mrs. Hummer?
Aye.
That's 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Great. So.
Thank you.
Moving on with more projects. So, item 6.01 is a review item. So, are there any board questions or comments about any of these items? Okay. Is there any public comment? All right. That was easy, Mr. Stansky. All right. Item 6.02 is a review item. It's a staff presentation on water testing at schools.
Good morning, President Hummer, Dr. Arlotto, and members of the board. I'm Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities, and with me is
John Ander, the Supervisor of Operations and Logistics.
Christopher Williams, Environmental Issues Program Manager.
Bob Mosier, Chief Communications Officer for the school system.
And we will be providing you a status update regarding House Bill 270, water sampling and testing in our schools. House Bill 270 was passed by the General Assembly and signed by Governor Hogan on May 4th, 2017. Anne Arundel County Public Schools was invited to participate in meetings along with other county school systems, the Maryland Department of Education, and MABE to assist the Department of the Environment in developing the regulations for this law. The regulations became effective on April 9th, 2018. This new law and regulation mandates that all public and private schools served by public water test drinking water outlets for the presence of lead. Drinking water outlets are defined as potable water fixture that is used for drinking or food preparation. Drinking water outlets is further defined by the regulation as including an ice-making machine, a hot drink machine, a kitchen sink, a classroom combination sink with drinking fountain, a sink in a home economics classroom, a teacher's lounge sink, a nurse's office sink, a sink in a special education classroom, and any other sink known to be used for human consumption. The law also states that sampling must be done while school is in session. Thus, no sampling can be done over the summer months. Sampling will resume in September, and we will have all schools on public water tested by July 1, 2019. It is a requirement of the law that the parents be notified of results, even if those results show levels below the threshold of 20 parts per billion. And now I'll turn it over to John, who will discuss sampling and results.
Thank you, Lisa. Anne Arundel County Public Schools began sampling in mid-March 2018, prior to the April 9th effective date. As of August 20th, 33 schools have been tested, and we have results for 23 of these schools. The schools that have been sampled are mostly in the North County and Glen Burnie clusters. We began our testing in this area of the county to maximize the number of schools that could be sampled by our independent accredited lab, Martell, which is based in Towson. When school resumes, we will begin our sampling in the southern part of the county. Due to the strict guidelines for sampling prior to student and staff arrival, we want to finish the sampling in the schools furthest from our contractor before winter arrives and the possibility of inclement weather that might cause delays or cancellation in the sampling plan. Upon completion of these schools, we will then move to the central portion of the county and then finish in the western part of our county. In addition to outlets designated as drinking water outlets, Anne Arundel County Public Schools tested, quote, bathroom and classroom sinks not clearly signed as not a drinking water outlet, unquote, per the regulation, along with slop sinks and custodial closets and hose bibs. The first results that we received from Martell were delivered to schools and parents at the end of April 2018. Parents were provided with a several-page summary, and information was provided to them to allow them access to the full report on their school websites. In addition, Anne Arundel County Public Schools created a website where all summaries and full reports are posted for public viewing. As for the sampling process is defined by the regulation, and the preparations that were required for sampling by Martell included utilizing a printed map and visiting each school and confirming the location of each water source. The primary purpose for doing this is to assign a unique identification to each source to ensure future information is accurately identified for each water source. Prior to any sample that is taken, it is a requirement that the water has to sit in the pipes between 8 and 18 hours. Lastly, all samples must be taken before students and staff arrive at school in the morning, because if outlets are turned on and water flows, the integrity of the sample is compromised. As for results, as of August 20th, we have results from 23 schools totaling 2,487 outlets. Of those, 190 have elevated levels of lead. Of those 190, however, 30, or 1.2% of the outlets for which we have results to date, are drinking water outlets. Those 30 outlets, which are spread across 9 schools, were shut off within 24 hours of us receiving results of elevated levels. I'm happy to report today that all 190 fixtures that have been identified have been replaced. Those outlets, however, will remain inoperable until the completion of sampling at all schools. At that time, we will retest any drinking water outlet with a prior elevated level. Only when we receive satisfactory results will an outlet be turned back on. There are sufficient working drinking water outlets at all schools. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Mosier.
Good morning. So with regard to communication, as Mr. Anders said, school-specific letters were sent home with students beginning in late April. We were able to send letters home at 12 of the 23 schools for which we have results before students left for the summer. We attached summary results, usually 2-page, but in some cases more, to those letters and then put the full reports online. For the others, we sent email reports to parents and staff, have done that over the summer, again with the summary results attached and access to the full results. We created this website, which is aacps.org/water test results, which has an explanation of the process and all of the both summary and full results for every school that we have tested, as well as a notation for the schools that we have tested but have not yet received results. So people who want to know, has their school been tested, that's the list that we have tested so far. We'll continue to follow that process through the summer and through the next school year, and with that, we'll take any questions you have. Excuse me.
Mr. Mosher, all the parents were notified of this. Were the teachers and the staff also notified about the results?
So principals were given full reports to post in their school and to alert their staff to, and then when we sent home the emails, we sent them to staff as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President, and certainly I know Mr. Mosher has been at the forefront of this, certainly Dr. Arlotto, but a missing face today, Mr. Sheknovich, I know is taking the twins off to college, and that's why he's not here, but he's been extremely helpful over the last couple of weeks as we've been asking some questions, and I appreciate everyone's response. As I look at the list, I know there's a lot of TBD at this point. As I think of Belgrove Elementary School, and I was at an event there recently. That's a fairly new school, and within the last couple of years, and that says to me that obviously we need to pinpoint from the source to the school, and it's likely that some county infrastructure up there could be in play. And I know the county executive has signaled his willingness to work with us as well as we pinpoint what may be off of AACPS property. So I appreciate that. One thing that I guess I'll ask maybe 2 or 3 questions here away from the county in this case and county water, city water I should say, and looking at well water, specifically schools that are on well water, how are they going to be handled, and will the testing occur at every fixture at the well water supplied schools?
Thank you, sir. Yes, the answer is yes. The well water schools will be tested in compliance with HB 270 as well.
I also would like to ask, and I know this is not the case with some other LEAs, other jurisdictions, why was the decision made by AACPS to test all of the water outlets and not just the consumable ones as prescribed in the law?
We were at the beginning going through the regulations. We knew that we had to get it out ahead of the finalization and get some schools done before the school year ended. So we made the decision to go ahead and test everywhere, because even in a bathroom sink, a student could put a water bottle underneath it. And so we erred on the side of caution and tested everything.
And I appreciate that, because I think then, potentially a conversation point subsequent to this is, the remediate. I can't even talk today. I flew in from. I got home at 12:45 from Boston, so I'm on second wind here. What remediation would likely occur to the non-consumable outlets that test at high? In particular, what I'm thinking of athletes that may be outside that I know we're not supposed to be using hose bibs to fill up, water and so forth, but it happens. But are we going to put signage up or just something that sort of sends out a signal or alert like, hey, don't do this?
Thank you for that question. Yes, signage is a requirement by HB 270. Signage will be placed at all locations that have come back positive, and it will indicate specific, whether it's for hand washing only or for no drinking, and those signage have been developed by MDE, so we have them in our possession. Some of our schools already have those signage placed as we speak.
If I could add to that, because that's a great question. We've got our student athletes out in the heat of August. do two-day practices for the fall teams, and we've got our cheerleaders and those are outside sports. We've got our cheerleaders and our volleyball players inside. And so the athletic directors are well aware of this, as are the coaches. Our athletic department here at the central office run by Clayton Culp is also aware. So they're working on alternatives where in the past they may have run a hose from a hose bib to a water line out at the soccer field for hydration. Each of the trainers are involved as well. We don't have any schools where, each of the schools where there may be issues identified at this point are one or two or three consumable outlets somewhere in the school. There are plenty of outlets that we're able to get water and ice. The ice machine's been tested in the training rooms, so we're able to get all water and ice to the student athletes as they go through the practices through the heat of August.
Thank you for that. And my last question or area of questions just around some of the budgetary and the financial aspects of this, if I may. Obviously, you know, the board did not take a formal vote on this bill when it was part of the 2017 legislative session because of the alignment to our overall legislative statement that we released in the fall of 2016, in particular around we just call unfunded mandate, or the fact that, you know, this is the state prescribing something without providing the provision of funding in this case. So my question then is, because no additional funding was allocated for this I was going to say bill, but for the law, either from the state or from the county, do we know how much the testing and remediation overall is going to cost? And then sort of subsequent to that, or as a follow-up, so we're transparent with the public, where is that funding coming from within our budget? And does that have any implication to pending projects that may be delayed because we've had to borrow from a line item?
The sampling costs are expected to be around $300,000. And we did add that to our FY19 budget. In anticipation, we took a guesstimate. And we think remediation will be somewhere in the $700,000 mark. We're not sure, it depends on how many faucets and such that we're going to replace. We've been using in-house labor to replace the faucets. So right now, although those plumbers now are working to replace faucets versus doing some work orders that are in place, but we are realizing quickly that we're not going to be able to use the material costs in our operating budget because that will be deplenished too quickly. So we're going to be looking to the capital budget and be using our health and safety funds for materials and probably contracted labor to replace faucets. So that will bump out fire alarm projects and PA projects that we had scheduled for that. But we do, we're in discussions right now about, for our FY20 request that you will see in September, is looking at bumping that request up to accommodate some of these needs.
And I was even going to suggest that we do CIP next month if that would be something that we want to overcompensate for, just because of the unknowns that may still exist.
Yes,
so
we've been in discussions with them.
Thank you so much for the question.
Ms. Korbelak.
I have a few questions too. Does the bill require us to do this test every year, or is it, every 5 years?
So our plan, as we had indicated, is we are going to finish all of our schools this year because of the lateness in the regulation being finalized. It didn't allow us ample time to actually align ourselves with what the regulation and the law says. But to answer your question more specifically, once we are finished with all of our schools, our plan next school year, 2019-20, to start a 3-year program, which is required by the law. So every school has to be tested every 3 years.
Okay. And have all of the counties in Maryland started their testing yet? Do you know?
We do not have knowledge of what the status is of any other county at this point.
We're being told that some counties have already finished all their testing. Are we behind? Do we know that, or?
Well, I'm not sure. Once again, I'm not sure what the status is of the other Maryland counties. What I do know is that we felt like we started at a prudent time when, in collaboration with MDE, as I said, in mid-March, prior to the regulation being finalized on April 9th. In collaboration with MDE, they assured us that the testing protocols would not be changing, because without utilizing the appropriate testing protocols, we would not be aligned with the law. So we felt mid-March was prudent, and so that's as quickly as we could start, and working as hard as we could with our team and with Martell, we felt like we successfully completed 1/4 of our schools in this prior school year.
Of course, we have many more schools in some counties as well.
Correct.
Do we know if reusable water bottles are going to be allowed at all of our schools? We've also been hearing that some schools, students aren't allowed to bring them.
We are, right? So we've asked, we met with the principals on Monday, and during their cluster meetings, this was a conversation. They got an update from Bob about the update that you're hearing today. So they have full information they can share with their staff, so they can share with their parents or students as there are questions. But we've asked them to allow students to carry reusable water bottles through the buildings.
My last question, if we know this, has there been a change in technology? Or are we still building schools with fixtures and faucets that have lead sealants or lead components?
There has been a change in faucets. You know, over the years, there's been less and less lead readings that are acceptable. So obviously, the newer technology, the newer faucets are in much better shape than the older ones.
So those of us that have houses like mine that are 22 years old and I never changed a faucet, might be time to do that.
You might want to test.
Okay. Thank you.
To go along with that, you said that all 190 fixtures that had tested high have already been replaced. So that means they've been replaced at the consumable and the non-consumable
That is correct.
areas.
That is correct.
So are the non-consumable areas, so I know we turned off the ones at consumable outlets until they can be tested again.
Correct.
Were the non-consumable outlets turned off, or do they just now have signage that says don't drink from this one, even now that the fixtures have been changed?
So they were turned off to have them replaced, obviously, but once they were replaced, they were turned back on, and signage should be placed at each of those locations because they are considered non-consumable sources.
So when we come back to test our consumable ones that we've replaced the fixtures, will we also test the non-consumable ones that we replace the fixtures?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Butcher.
Just a couple of questions. What was the timeline when the test for the 30 consumable faucets were shown to have elevated levels to when they were actually turned off?
Again, the law requires 24 hours, sir, so all of those were turned off within a 24-hour period of time. I would say that the majority of them were turned off much less than 24 hours. We have a great team where we communicate very clearly between Mr. Williams and his team, who is, managing this process directly, and our operations team. So I'm very confident that they were turned off probably within a 10-hour period of time.
And could you articulate again on how the decision was made in terms of where you started testing throughout the school district?
So, sir, Martell Labs is located in Towson. We had many discussions about the pricing structure because this was a new process for us, and we had a contract in place, but the contract was specific to sampling, and it didn't incorporate some of the other factors that are involved, and that is travel to and from the location. There was a lot of discussion regarding how many schools we would be able to sample in one day because of the constraints of having to do it from 5 in the morning before students and staff arrived. So we felt like, since this was new to us, if you will, with this regulation, we felt like reducing the mileage from their location in Towson to the northern part of our county would allow us more success in completing the maximum number of schools.
Did this board participate in that decision on where to start or making direction in terms of what schools you should start with?
The discussion?
The answer is no.
Sir. No, sir.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you. So, Dr. Arlotto, let's not forget our marching bands sweating out there in the summer sun. Yeah, you bet. When was the last time we had a comprehensive testing regimen here in Anne Arundel County Public Schools?
So, sir, the history of lead testing in our schools is that we're in regular communication with MDE about various topics that relate to them, that's under their purview. Water testing was never a topic. Schools on public water, as all of us, I believe, know, come from Anne Arundel County Department of Public Works, which must certify annually to the Environmental Protection Agency that all drinking water standards are met. The water test reports for all of these schools are located on their website. There was never any law or regulation provided by MDE that would dictate the requirement for our school system to test lead in the water in non-public, or in schools that were from public water source.
So even considering the age of some of our buildings, it wasn't considered prudent to just have an active testing program? I'm trying to understand.
So I'll hazard an answer. These are the experts, but the short answer is no. Maryland Department, the Environment MDE, we're in constant contact with them about a number of any ongoing issues with regard to our schools and our community. It has not been recommended to us or any of the counties that I know of, but I'm going to speak about us. In our recent history, they've recommended that you ought to be doing this on a regular basis. It is done at our well water schools. I think it's 18 schools. Correct, on well water. That's a different law, and we follow those guidelines and regulations, and we test that water regularly for lots of different things, lead included. But that's a different law, and we follow that, and we do that testing through MDE regularly at those 18 schools. The schools that are on, as not just schools, but any of the county agencies, your homes that are getting water from the county, unless there is some belief, they contact us and say, we think there's a contaminant in the water. I'm making this up. They might call us and say it went to this jurisdiction. We might go out and test a particular school or area, but unless we're sort of asked or told, we've not talked about installing a comprehensive program in testing the water at all of our schools, unless we're sort of alerted to something, and then we might send in the environmental team to do that at a particular school.
So then what was the impetus for this law that all of our schools on public water should be tested?
I think you'd have to talk to the people that wrote the bill. I would suspect we might see some changes to that in the direction that you might be talking about, in something more comprehensive on a more annual basis. This is me taking a guess based on what I'm seeing going around the different counties. It's been difficult to do in the short window we've been given. Again, as the regulations came out in April, and although we started a few weeks ahead of the regulations coming out, the fact that we can't test during the summer, we have to test when school is in session, yet there is nobody in the building. All the pipes have to be drained in the evening and then refilled, and the water has to sit 8 to 18 hours before before the independent lab can draw a sample. So, but again, to answer your question, we've not gone that route. We've not had that conversation about comprehensive testing. That may very well be where the conversation goes. I think I would not be surprised if there's some tweaks to this bill coming up with this new session.
So would it be an accurate statement to say that we are knowingly exposing our children to lead?
No, I don't think that's an accurate statement. No, because we have every indication, for the most part, from the county water source, that the water is coming to us as it's going to your house, and the local pool or the movie theater, where you might take a drink of water from a water fountain, that the water is clean and in good shape. And unless they tell us otherwise, we are under that impression.
So often we hear in public service announcements and home improvement shows that often it's not the fixture, but rather the pipes in the building that are causing the issue. So why are we only looking at fixtures to replace?
We're looking at patterns. If we see obviously a pattern of fixtures along one pipeline, then we would be looking at further into that area to see if we need to replace that line. So we have not
that's
seen
also
that
the
yet.
easiest place to start, right? You start at that fixture. Clearly, it's not something that's widespread because we're seeing just 1 or 2 or 3 outlets in a given school where there could be 250 or more in a particular school. And so it's that, as Mr. Seaman Crawford talks about those patterns, is it down a certain hallway in a certain area where it could be that pipe, but it most likely, is my understanding, would be the fixture itself, because we don't see it widespread throughout the building. So you start with the fixture. That's the easiest thing to get to. And when we come back and test it, if that's not it, then we're going to have to go deeper into the walls and then have conversations with the county and those kinds of things. As Mr. Gillen referred to, but you start sort of where the easiest to get to and remedy, and then we'll work our way back.
So with the
is that fair? I'm sorry.
Yes,
I should stop talking.
That is correct.
So with the maps that our testing company is working with, is there any indication at this point that there are patterns within particular buildings, or does it just seem random and scattered?
Your latter, sir.
Random
and scattered, yes, sir.
Okay. I have no further questions.
2 of the schools that did have some outlets that were higher are currently under renovation, correct?
Correct.
So their pipes are, everything's being replaced,
Yes.
the fixtures and things, so that's already in process for that. We did receive an extension. The original bill said everything had to be tested by this July. We received an extension. My understanding from what I've seen is that just about every school system received an extension because the regulations came out so late that it would be impossible to get the testing done. Is that accurate to say?
That is correct.
To have. Now, as the schools are tested, we're going to put forth the information just like we've done so far.
That's
and
correct. We'll
notify
keep this page up and we'll update the information on the left as more information becomes available, and we'll add schools to it on the right.
Okay. And will schools be notified before their schools are tested? Like your school will be tested next Friday, or is it going to be?
So what we, what we did in the tests that have been completed is that we put together a plan for which schools would be scheduled on which day. But there's all sorts of variables that are involved in regard to the use of that building later into the evening, which might not allow us to have the water sitting in the pipe. So what we've been doing is we've been working very closely with our lab, and we've had 3 to 5 schools prepared, if you will, each day to allow us some flexibility as to which schools to go to. So we could certainly do that, but the accuracy could be suspect because of some of those changes that we have to make on sometimes a daily or weekly basis.
And as you said, some of the weather and different school delays or openings, all those things can impact. Do we have a general? I know we have to complete by next July. Do we have a general sense of when we think we'll be completed? Will it be before then, or taking into account that so many things are variable on here, but.
With the team that I work with, I'm very confident we will finish before July, but I hesitate to give anything more specific than that at this point.
Certainly. So a lot of different things. This webpage, first off, I want to commend y'all on because it has an amazing amount of information. It's very clear about it. But we've also asked some additional questions. Will more things be added to this as it comes about?
Yes, we're going to take the information from this presentation and put it up there. We'll also take the video from this presentation and put on this page so people can watch this.
So that anyone could watch and see the latest update. So are there any other board questions or comments? Okay, very thorough, and it sounds like an extremely time-intensive, labor-intensive endeavor to drain everything. So
very much
to have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know. I don't think so. It's kind of all right. Are there any public questions or comments?
Good morning.
Please state your name.
Lisa Van Buskirk. I live in Edgewater. I'm not here. Start school later. I just wanted to give the board some historical perspective. In the Capitol Gazette on the 23rd of September 1986, some lead testing results were released. One of the schools that was on this list with 10 milligrams per liter lead level is now on the list 18 years later, or however many years that is, whatever. 2018, 1986, both times Marley Glen was listed as having elevated lead. Now some of the schools, Arundel High, Tracy's Elementary, Deal, Lakeshore, Fort, Smallwood, Bodkin, Davidsonville, Mayo, Arlington Echo, Millersville, South Shore, and Marley Glen were the ones that I saw. Obviously Mayo has been replaced, that's the one closest to my house, so that ought not to be a lead issue. But it is disturbing that Millersville in 1986 was told that they were just going to let the minerals settle and not replace the lead solar, and so they were put on bottled water. In 1986, 87, they're still on bottled water. So I'm not sure that we have improved our methodology since 1986. So I encourage you to look at some of the historical data for some of the previous water testing and compare it to today's. Thank you.
Just as a clarification, Millersville is on well water, and it tests high for other things, not lead, and so because of the area that it's in, and so it has been on bottled water because of that, and it is not close to, so it's not.
Okay, I apologize, but I can send you this graphic from 1986 when they did test.
Okay.
With some lead in their water.
Several of those that you mentioned are on well water, so it's a separate testing. So
okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donna Rober, and I'm just a concerned citizen, taxpayer, grandmother, mother, whatever. First of all, I want to commend the board and the school system for your transparency in all of this. I was really surprised when I saw how quickly you'd responded to testing the water and then to getting that information out to the public. I thought it was spot on. I really appreciate the fact that you went out ahead of the MDE requirement, the MDE guidelines, and started testing ahead of them, hoping that they weren't going to make those last-minute governmental changes to things. A lot of the questions I had, you all have already asked. I was concerned about where the funding's coming from. I remain concerned that there is no additional funding for this, which means that it's being taken away from what we're doing for our students in the classrooms and in the schools and for the teachers. I don't think that that's a good thing. I realize it comes from capital budget or from construction sometimes, but that's all being taken away from what can be done for our students. So I think we really need to put some pressure on the county to start funding this for the school system. It also goes back to, it's not just the school system. Talking about the supply lines, I'm glad to hear there's analysis being done on, are these all on the same supply line? But a lot of this could be coming from outside, especially for schools that are on well water. I live in a community that's half well and half city water, so I know that there's lead in our well water. Finally, I'd just like to say I'm really happy to see this website. I think it's great for the public to have that. People are going to get emotional and overreact to some of the information that comes out of here. But when you think about there's only 1.2% of our drinking outlets that have any potential exposure to our students, they're getting more exposure in the lead paint in some of these older homes that they live in. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rober. All right. Hold on. So that is the end of our meeting today. The next general board meeting will be Wednesday, September 12th at 10 a.m. There will be the FY 2020 Capital Improvement and Capital Budget Workshop will be held Thursday, September 13th at 6 p.m. here. The public is welcome to attend, but no public testimony will be taken at that time. Mr. Gilliland.
Madam President, I move that the board go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.